We're going to talk a little bit more about this. Joining us live tonight is KCRA3 political analyst, Republican Kevin Eckery, and joining us tonight as well, Democrat Roger Salazar. Thanks to both of you for joining us, guys. Appreciate that. Kevin, let's start with you because you were there at the debate last night. We loved your Facebook posts. You should follow Kevin on Facebook. So tell us what it was like to be there.
Well, you know, it's a different experience when you're in the auditorium instead of watching it on TV. The crowd was getting into it, and there was this very obnoxious set of followers, I guess, of Rand Paul, who were just behind us, who were cheering and whistling at every opportunity. And I think I lost a lot of hearing by the time I left.
What'd you say?
But it was great. Thanks, Kelly.
We love these pictures because it seemed like you were right there. And as you said, I mean, when you are covering this and you're in the middle of it, it feels different, doesn't it? What were your impressions? Any clear-cut winners or losers up there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First, the interesting, the so-called JV debate, the undercard, in some ways was more substantive. I mean, that was a real debate. And it being national security, it really played to certain strengths of the different candidates in the undercard, if you will. Lindsey Graham, it was totally in his wheelhouse, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and he did a great job. In the afternoon, in the second debate, I think the clear winners were not necessarily in this order, but Rubio for sure. He did very well. Christie did well, and Bush did well. It was an unusually subdued night for Donald Trump. He didn't volunteer as much bombast as he usually does. But there was a time where he got into it with Jeb Bush.
We're not talking about isolation. We're talking about security.
Let's talk a little bit, Roger. Let's talk about your thoughts on the debate. And from your side, what are you taking away as pluses and minuses from last night?
Well, I think first of all, I have a couple of thoughts. The first one is, it seemed to me that it's kind of a sad state, and I kind of feel sorry for Republicans to have a clown like Donald Trump be in the lead. Last night was particularly interesting because you really didn't see, other than Jeb Bush, nobody really wanted to go after him or attack him or try to bring him down a peg, which I thought was interesting. Again, these debates are supposed to be areas where you sort of mix it up a little bit and hash out some of the policies. The biggest sort of a fight between any of the debaters up there was between Rubio and Cruz on to who, and it's ironic, these two folks are children of immigrants and they were both trying to outdo each other. It's who was going to be the most anti-immigrant candidate up there.
Well, I mean, wait, don't forget. I mean, Cruz is an immigrant.
Right. Well, exactly.
He was born in Canada.
Which makes it even sadder. But again, it's just sad to see that the Republicans sort of continuing to sort of play this sort of base politic, trying to sort of go down to the least common denominator. And frankly, the biggest issue that I saw, was that they were all, in talking about, national security. They were all sort of playing, to see who could scare this country the most. They were playing the politics of fear more than anything else.
Well, one of the interesting things from last night is that if you went there expecting it to be this big policy pronouncement, it wasn't. I mean, one of the things that we're discovering, and this is in the Democratic Party as well, is that there is a substantial number of voters who simply want to talk about their feelings. And if you look at the top three, you've got 60% of Republican voters are supporting Trump, Carson, and Cruz. And all of whom are talking about sort of fear and very much encouraging this idea that we need to pull back. America is weak and we need to do other things. You have a similar phenomenon with Bernie in the Democratic race. You've got almost 40% of Democrats who are saying, I'm washing my hands of you. All the elites, you have something against us, and that's a huge number of people in both parties who are alienated from traditional politics. It's amazing.
And national security is something obviously in the news that everybody's been talking about. So there was a lot of talk about that last night. I'm curious, gentlemen, if the election was tomorrow, and I know that this question comes up from time to time, and this will be changing as we get closer to, what candidate on both sides is really sticking out to you guys?
From my perspective, if the election were held tomorrow, and this is the polls all bear this out, Hillary Clinton would be the next president of the United States. And I think, she was smart enough that before this debate last night, she laid out, a 5-point plan to deal with domestic radicalization and terrorism abroad, which is very comprehensive, and it contrasted again her policies of dealing with this problem through vigilance as opposed to fear, very much contrasted with what you saw at the debate last night.
Kevin, could national security be a tough road for candidate Hillary Clinton?
It's a tough road for candidate Hillary Clinton, but one of the other things that's tough for Hillary Clinton is that on the issue of trust, her numbers are not much different than Donald Trump's, and both of them are really bad. But in the case of the Trumps and the Cruz and the Carsons, they're tapping into a feeling, they're validating people's feelings of fear and worry. And you contrast that with the president the other evening, who basically talked down to people and said, poo-pooing their fear, poo-pooing their concerns, and saying, you shouldn't worry, we're taking care of it. And that's just tone deaf. I mean, there's got to be something in between folks who are making up their own facts in the case of a Donald Trump and sort of traditional politics. It's an amazing phenomenon.
All right, Kevin Eckery and Roger Salazar, thanks for being here tonight, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more in the coming months, even before the Iowa caucuses.
Thanks.